There are lots of things all around us, exciting things that surround us.
But how does it work?
Do you know?
How is it made?
Do you know? Things that go up, things that go down, things that go pop, things that go round with special cameras to show you inside. It's going to be a big surprise.
But how does it work?
Do you know?
How is it made?
Do you know? Do you know?
Let's find out!
Hello, I'm Maddie, and I've just been doing some shopping. This bag is really easy for me to lift, but this one, ooh, it's too heavy.
There are lots of heavy things that we can't lift, like a shopping trolley full of food, a motorbike, or a big pile of bricks. So, how can we lift heavy items up? That's right, by using a forklift truck.
Forklift trucks are used to lift really bulky, heavy things. But do you know how a forklift truck works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
Forklift truck.
To find out how a forklift truck works, I've come here to a warehouse.
A warehouse is where lots and lots of items are stored. And Nick is a forklift truck driver here.
You should never go close or play near a forklift truck without a grown-up, but I've got special permission to show you how they work.
And I'm wearing a special high-visibility jacket to make sure Nick can see me.
This part is called the forks, and it looks a little bit like a fork that you eat with. And just like a fork, it's the part that scoops and lifts things up. These are called pallets, and they're made of planks of wood.
Pallets are very strong, which means heavy things can be put on top of them. And underneath, they have two spaces for the forklift truck's forks to slide into.
The forks are attached to the carriage, and this tall part here is called the mast. Can you see that chain? It looks like a huge bike chain, doesn't it? Well, that's called the mast chain, and it lifts the forks and the carriage up and down. But how does a forklift this size lift really heavy things all the way up there without tipping over? Let's find out. Here, I've got a plank of wood and some different size pots of paint. What do you think will happen if I put one small pot of paint on one side and a big, heavy pot of paint on the other? Should we find out?
Ooh, that's right. The big pot of paint slides off. But look what happens when we put a small pot of paint on each side. It doesn't tip over.
That's because the pot of paint on this side weighs the same as the pot of paint on that side. It's called counterbalance.
And a forklift truck also has counterbalance, a heavy weight inside at the back, so it can pick things up at the front and not tip forwards.
But to find out how it lifts them really high in the air, I think we need to take a closer look.
First, the driver moves the forklift forward, so the forks slide into the pallet. Next, the driver pulls a lever. This pushes oil into the bottom of a hollow tube, called a hydraulic cylinder. Inside the hydraulic cylinder is a piston. The oil being pushed into the cylinder pushes the piston up. As the piston pushes up, it lifts the mast, and the mast chain starts to pull the carriage and the forks up. The forklift truck moves into position in front of a shelf. When the forks are at the right height, it drops slightly. The back wheels turn, and the forklift truck reverses, leaving the pallet on the shelf. The driver pushes a lever, which lets the oil out of the hydraulic cylinder. The piston moves back down, lowering the mast, the carriage, and the forks. And off it goes, ready to lift another pallet.
Wow, that was really interesting. Shall we take a look for ourselves? I've got some of my special cameras here to attach to the forklift so we can see what happens when it moves a heavy pallet onto one of the top shelves. We're ready to go. I've connected the special cameras to this screen so I can watch what's happening. OK, Nick, we're ready to go.
Look, Nick's putting the forks into the 2 holes in the pallet.
That's so it can lift the heavy things up really easily.
And now he's pulling the lever, which lets oil into the pistons, so the mast and carriage can take the pallet up.
Whoa! The forklift is moving the pallet so high.
And it's not falling over because of the counterbalance at the back of the forklift truck. Nick then drives the forklift forward and pushes the lever to lower the pallet onto the shelf safely.
Can you hear that sound? That beeping tells us that the forklift is reversing.
Nick finishes by pushing the lever one last time, which brings the carriage all the way to the floor. So he can drive off.
How amazing was that? I think forklift trucks are brilliant. What was your favourite part about finding out how they work?
Can you remember the part of the forklift truck the forks are attached to? That's right, it's the carriage. Did you hear the sound the forklift truck made when it reversed? And did you see the way the forklift truck lifted the pallet really high on my special camera?
Forklifts are great for lifting really heavy things, like boxes of fruit. Here, I've got a box of apples. What's your favourite fruit? I love grapes, and I love these too, raisins. But did you know that raisins are just grapes that have been dried? There are lots of different types of dried fruit, like bananas, apricots, and even pineapples. But do you know how dried fruit is made? Let's find out.
How is it made?
Dried fruit.
Dried fruit is made here, on a farm. This is an apple orchard. And look, you can see the apples starting to grow. Today, they're turning apples that have already been picked into these dried apple slices.
But first, they need to be taken from the field in these big apple bins to the factory.
This is a bin tipper, and it tips the apples into this giant washing machine.
To clean the apples, they take a ride on this very special conveyor belt. And then they get dropped off into a big bath of water.
The apples bob along the water and come to here. The apple ladder, which carries the apples up to the next stage. This is the apple orientation machine. And can you see the apples fall into a little hole? And under each hole is a wheel that spins around and it turns the apple until the stalk is facing up. How brilliant is that?
Underneath the stalk is a part of the apple called the core. And to make dried apple slices, the orientation machine lifts the apples off the little holes to remove the core.
Whoa, look! The machine is pushing the core out of the apple, leaving a big hole in the middle.
After the metal rods have made a hole in the middle of the apple, they slide onto another rod, ready for them to be sliced into 2 parts. Before they come out the end of the machine, down some slides called flumes.
It's like a water park for apples. There they go, down the slide. The apples slide down onto this table. Can you see that it's jiggling around? We say that it's vibrating. And as the table vibrates, the apples jump up and down, and it shakes any of the pips off. Can you jiggle like an apple? Can you hear that sound? That is the sound of jets of air blasting water off the apple half.
Sounds a bit like a vacuum cleaner.
Now the apples need to be sliced. This is a slicing machine, and inside there are 8 really sharp blades that cut the apples into thin slices like this.
This machine cuts 8,000 apple slices a minute. So to see how it works, I'm going to use one of my special cameras.
This is my special slow motion camera. It lets us film things that happen really quickly, but watch them back slower.
Look, the drum is spinning the apple pieces around really quickly. And can you see those wavy bits of metal? They're the blades that chop the apple pieces into slices. But where have they all gone? Oh, there they are. Look at all those apple slices.
Our apples are the right size and shape now, aren't they? But they're still moist and a little bit bendy. Apples are really juicy because they've got lots of water inside them. If I squeeze this apple slice, can you see all of that juicy water coming out? But to make apple slices, we want them to be dry and crispy, so we have to take the water out. It's called dehydration. And it happens inside this machine. It's called a dehydrator. Look how big it is. It's 14 meters long.
Inside, the dehydrator machine blows hot air onto the apple slices for 12 hours.
Off they go.
The machine blows away all the water. It's a bit like a really big hairdryer.
When the apples come out, they look a little bit different. They're smaller and shriveled up. That's because the water that was inside has gone, and now the apple slices are dry and crispy.
The dried apple slices are then put onto another conveyor belt and are carried up to the packing machine, which drops the right amount of apple slices into each packet before they're sealed.
It's quite a good beat, isn't it? And here we have a finished packet of dried apples, all ready to eat.
I loved seeing how dried fruit is made. What was your favourite part? Do you remember the name of the machine that made sure the apples were the right way up? That's right, it's called the orientation machine. Do you remember the sound the air jets made when they dried off the apples? And did you see the apples getting chopped into slices on my special slow motion camera? So the next time you try dried fruit, like dried apple, you'll know how it was made. And when you see a forklift truck, you'll know how it lifts really heavy things really high up. I'll see you next time.
Hello, I'm Maddie, and today I'm going on a day trip to an island. An island is a place with water all around it. So how am I going to get my car across the water onto the island?
That's right. I'm going on a ferry.
But how do all the vehicles get onto the ferry, and how do they all fit inside? Do you know how a car ferry works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
Car ferry.
To find out how a car ferry works, I've come here to a port.
A port is where ferries and ships go to load and unload things. And ferries can carry people and cars across the water safely.
You should never play in a port or near water, but I've got special permission to be here so I can show you how a car ferry works. The ferry can carry lots of vehicles across the water, and here they all are, waiting to go on the ferry in queues.
There's big vehicles like this lorry.
We call lorries like this large freight.
And there's small vehicles like my little red car.
But how do all these vehicles get onto the ferry?
They drive under this gate
Thank you.
and across this long platform called the link span.
But the link span ends here and the ferry is over there. So how are the cars going to drive across this big gap? The front of the ferry is called the prow, and it's coming all the way down to rest on top of the link span. It's made a little bridge, so now the vehicles can drive off the ferry into the port. This is Kevin, and Kevin is the loading officer. It's his job to get all the cars, vans, coaches and lorries onto the ferry in the right order. And he works together in a team with the deck officer.
The loading officer works on land and the deck officer works on the ferry. And they talk to each other using walkie-talkies.
But to find out how the loading officer and the deck officer work together to make sure all the vehicles get onto the ferry safely, I think we need to take a closer look.
When the ferry is ready, the deck officer asks the loading officer for some vehicles, like 6 small cars. The loading officer signals to the cars to drive across the link span. And the deck officer signals to tell the cars which way to drive onto the ferry. Inside the ferry, the cars park onto a floor called the garage deck, which is fixed to hydraulic rams. When the garage deck is full, oil flows into the hydraulic rams and the garage deck moves upwards. This makes space for more vehicles to drive underneath. The deck officer asks the loading officer for more vehicles. This happens until the ferry is full. And when the ferry is full, it raises its prow, ready to set sail.
So you can see what happens when I drive my car onto the ferry. I've got some special cameras.
I'm attaching one onto the roof and one onto the door, so you can see what I see. And another one on the inside of the car, so you can see me as I drive onto the ferry.
Thank you, Kevin. Here we go. Wow. Right now, I'm driving over the link span, and ahead of me is the prow of the ferry. Ooh, and here's the deck officer.
Oh, it's a bit bumpy. Once I'm on the ferry,
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
I stop.
Here we go.
And now it's time for all the other cars to come aboard the garage deck. And when it's full, the hydraulic rams fill with oil and lift the garage deck up.
Whoa!
The hydraulic rams keep pushing the deck up until we're at the top. Now it's time to get out of the car and go to the passenger deck, where we can enjoy the views.
Did you hear that sound? Oh, that sound? That was the ferry's horn.
The horns mean we're moving out of the port. And oh, look, there's another ferry coming back from the island. That's the port on the island. That means it's time to go back to my car. So the garage deck can lower. And when we get to the bottom, the prow lowers too.
So now we can drive over the link span onto the island.
Wasn't our trip on the ferry fun?
I loved finding out how a car ferry works. What was your favourite bit?
Do you remember the name of the platform that takes the vehicles from the land onto the ferry? That's right, it's called a link span. Did you hear the sound of the horn when we were leaving the port? And did you see on my special cameras as I drove onto the ferry and got lifted up on the garage deck? Ferries and boats help to transport cars and people across oceans, seas and rivers. On planet Earth, where we live, there are lots of really big seas and oceans, but there are also lots and lots of countries. Can you think of a way how we can see where all the other countries on Earth are? We could use this. It's called a globe. And look, we can see all the way round it. But how do all of the oceans, seas, rivers and countries get onto the globe in the right place? Do you know how a globe's made? Let's find out. How is it made?
Globe.
To find out how a globe is made, I've come to a globe maker's workshop. At this workshop, they make lots of different globes. Small globes, big globes, and globes that spin round and round. A globe is a model of planet Earth. At the top of the globe is the most northern part of the world. We call it the geographical North Pole. And at the bottom of the globe is the geographical South Pole. The globe has a line that goes around the middle, and that's called the equator. And the equator splits the world into the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And two hemispheres make one sphere. A sphere is a three-dimensional or 3D shape, and we call it that because there are three ways of measuring it. The height is the distance from the top to the bottom. The circumference is the distance all the way around the middle. And the depth, that's the distance if we drill down from the surface of the Earth to the middle, deep inside. To make a globe, flat pieces of map are joined together around a sphere. But how do they do it so neatly? Let's find out. This is the design area where each globe is designed, and Alyssa is a globe designer. Alyssa's job is to design the flat sections of map that go on the globe. Each section is called a gore, and each gore has a different part of planet Earth drawn on it. Can you hear that sound? That's the sound of the printer printing out the gores. The gores of the map are mostly printed in black and white. The colour is added later. Next, the gores are cut out really carefully using a sharp knife. These 6 will make half our globe. Once the gores have been cut out, they need to be painted. Alice uses watercolour paint for the gores. She mixes the watercolour paint with water to make it really thin so that we can still see the globe design through the paint. What do you think Alice is painting with blue watercolour paint? That's right, it's water, like the seas and the oceans. The gores are then left so the paint can dry, but they don't look much like a globe yet, do they? Next, we need one of these, a sphere. This sphere is made of a material called fiberglass, and fiberglass is lightweight and really strong. That means fiberglass can be used to make lots of things, like surfboards, go-karts, and even helicopter blades. This is Leo. It's his job to stick the gores onto the sphere. First, Leo marks out some lines to make sure the gores go in the right spot. These are called latitudinal lines. Leo matches up the latitudinal lines on the gores with the latitudinal lines he's marked on the sphere. Look, can you see him matching the lines up? That squiggly latitudinal line is the equator. He sticks them in place using a little bit of glue and lots of water. Sticking the gores onto a sphere is a really fiddly job.
So I'm going to film Leo with one of my special cameras. This camera can film a time-lapse, which means I can film something that takes a really long time, but when we watch it back, it will happen quickly. Okay, the camera's recording.
Look, Leo's putting glue onto the sphere. Now he's taking a gore out of the water and is sticking it onto the sphere. This means he can match up the latitudinal lines without the gore sticking too quickly. Here's another gore. And another. It's starting to look much more like a globe, isn't it? Once Leo was finished, the mountains and rivers are painted onto the globe before a layer of varnish is added.
Varnish is clear and runny, but when it dries, it goes hard, so it protects the globe. A bit like an eggshell.
The globe is then attached to its stand.
And here we have a finished globe. Let's see if we can find where I am in the UK. Where am I? Here I am, the United Kingdom. If I spin the globe, here we find India, and even further down here is Australia. How amazing is that? I loved finding out how a globe is made. What was your favourite bit?
Do you remember the name of the flat pieces of paper that are stuck onto the sphere? That's right, they're called gauze. Did you hear the sound that the printer made as it printed out the gauze? And did you see my special time-lapse camera filming the gauze being stuck onto the sphere?
So the next time you see a globe, you'll be able to point out different countries and oceans, and you'll know how it was made. And if you see a car ferry, you'll know exactly how it works to get cars across the sea. I'll see you next time. Hello, I'm Maddie, and today I'm at an airport. Have you ever been to an airport? When we go on an aeroplane, we need a ticket. Sometimes we need a passport, but what else might we need? That's right, sometimes we need a suitcase.
When we go away, we pack everything we need inside a suitcase. And when we get to the airport,
We need to go to a check-in desk. The big bags and suitcases we travel with are called baggage, and we check baggage onto the plane here at the check-in desks. But how does airport baggage work? Let's find out.
how does it work?
Airport baggage.
At this airport, thousands of people fly in and out every single day. And on a really busy day, the airport can check in over 3,500 bags and suitcases.
And altogether, they weigh more than 40 hippopotamuses.
Thank you. This is Emily, and it's Emily's job to check in all the baggage for the flight. First, Emily weighs the suitcase. Hidden underneath the conveyor belt is a set of scales. The scales weigh the suitcase and the weight pops up just here.
They work in the same way as kitchen scales you might have used when helping a grown-up to bake a cake.
Can you see Emily is attaching a tag to my suitcase? That is the destination tag. And this is the airport code. Every airport around the world has a code that's made up of different letters, and this code matches the airport where the baggage is going.
And that means your baggage travels safely with you all the way to your destination.
Can you see at the end of this short conveyor belt is a rubber curtain? Well, behind that, there are lots more conveyor belts. But how do the conveyor belts work together to make sure the baggage ends up in the right place? To find out, I think we should take a closer look.
When we check in our baggage, it's given a destination tag with a barcode. The travel agent presses a button, and the suitcase moves along a short conveyor belt, called an ejector belt, to a long conveyor belt carrying all the checked-in baggage. There are lots of ejector belts, and at the end of each one is a laser beam. When the suitcase breaks the beam sends a signal to the other ejector belts, telling them the suitcase is there. The ejector belts take it in turn to push the baggage onto the long conveyor belt. The suitcase is then carried into the baggage room and to the baggage dock. The destination tag is checked and the suitcase is put onto a trolley that takes it to the right aeroplane.
Wow, that was really interesting. So that we can find out how the suitcase gets from the check-in desk to the baggage dock for real, I've been given special permission to put one of my special cameras on this suitcase.
Off it goes behind the curtain. Look, the conveyor belt has stopped my suitcase. It's waiting for the laser to send a message to push my suitcase onto the long conveyor belt. There it goes! Made a clunking sound, didn't it? After a short trip behind the check-in desks, my suitcase reaches another rubber curtain and goes up a ramp. It's like a fairground ride for suitcases. It goes down, round, up, and even spins round. And finally, my suitcase turns one more corner and arrives in the baggage room. Look how big the baggage room is.
I wonder where my suitcase is.
Oh, there it is.
This is Phil, and it's Phil's job to make sure that the baggage in the baggage room goes onto the right flight. Phil checks the destination tags and is looking for the right airport code. When he finds a suitcase with the right airport code, he loads it onto one of these. It's called a dolly. Oh, here's our bag now.
Next, a special car called a tug hooks onto the dolly and takes all the baggage to the plane, where they're loaded onto another conveyor belt.
There's our suitcase being loaded on now.
And look, our suitcase is about to go through a little door into the hold underneath where the passengers sit, ready for the plane to take off.
And there you have it. My suitcase has made it from the check-in desk onto the plane, ready for me to meet it on the other side. I loved finding out how airport baggage works. What did you like most?
Do you remember the name of the tag that tells us where the baggage is going? That's right, it's called the destination tag. Do you remember the sound the bag made when it was pushed onto the big conveyor belt? And did you see my suitcase come down into the baggage room on my special camera?
So now you know what happens when you check in baggage at an airport. Bags come in lots of different shapes and sizes, don't they? You might pack a big suitcase like this one if you're going on holiday, or a slightly smaller case if you're going for a shorter trip.
Or if you're going on a day out, you might use one of these, a rucksack.
Do you know how a rucksack's made? Let's find out.
How is it made?
Rucksack.
Rucksacks are made in a place like this. A rucksack factory! Rucksacks come in all sorts of different colours, shapes and sizes. Most rucksacks will have a zip, a handle to hold, 2 straps so we can carry it on our back, and a pocket at the front to put things in.
But how are they made?
This factory make rucksacks out of a material called nylon. And nylon is great for making rucksacks because it's smooth, it's tough, and very, very strong. Whoa, look at that. But this is only a small piece. Today, they're making rucksacks out of 3 colours: blue, orange, and red. The rucksack starts out in here, the fabric room, with a huge roll of blue fabric. There is loads of it. There's 50 metres of fabric on one roll. That's the same length as an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And just this roll of fabric could make 60 rucksacks. Phew, I think we're there.
After the fabric has been rolled out, it gets cut into strips on the cutting table. Next, the big strip of fabric needs to be divided into smaller pieces.
Rob's using something called a template, and each shape will make a different part of the rucksack. Do you know what he's using to draw around the templates? That's right, it's chalk.
Rob then draws around templates on the red and orange fabrics, ready for everything to be cut out.
The shapes are cut out using this machine. It has a round blade that spins really, really fast to cut through the fabric. And to keep Rob nice and safe, he's got to wear one of these. It's a metal glove. How cool is that? The blade is spinning round really, really fast. And look how easily it's cutting through the layers of fabric.
Rob can cut out 4 rucksack pieces at the same time. This means the factory can make lots of rucksacks quicker.
All of these pieces will make one rucksack. This piece is going to be the front of a strap, and this orange piece is going to make the front pocket. But what do you think happens next? Can you hear that noise? We're in the sewing room, and that's the sound of lots of sewing machines all working at the same time. Over at this machine, Debbie's sewing something onto a piece of fabric. And we need it to open and close the rucksack. Can you guess what it is? That's right, it's a zip.
But there's lots more sewing to be done. Next, Rob makes the handle for our rucksack.
He makes it using an extra strong piece of nylon called webbing. But to make the webbing even stronger, he uses this machine. Whoa! It's called a bar tacker, and it makes a special type of stitch called a bar tack stitch. Wow, that was really quick. It only takes Rob about 3 seconds to make each handle. To get a closer look, I'm going to film this with my special slow motion camera. It lets us see things that happen really quickly, much slower. Right, camera's set. Let's go, Rob. Okay, let's watch it back so we can see how the machine works.
Look, can you see the needle? It's making a tiny zigzag pattern.
Now we can see what's happening.
It's going back and forth, back and forth.
That's brilliant.
And by doing so many stitches close together, it makes the handle really strong. How clever is that?
There's one more thing our rucksack needs, and that's the straps. Here, Debbie is sewing 2 pieces of red material together. Can you see? Now a piece of foam goes inside so the bag's comfortable to carry on our backs. The straps are nearly ready, but to make everything neat and tidy, Debbie uses a new machine to fold and sew a piece of material along the edge of the strap. It's called binding.
Look how quick it is.
So we've got the zip, the handle, the straps,
The back and front of the bag, which now has a bright orange pocket.
now we just need to stitch everything together.
First, the straps are sewn onto the back. Oh, and there's the handle.
It's really starting to look like a rucksack now, isn't it?
But something's missing. That's right, the sides. That's the part which has the zip. In it goes.
And there you have it, a finished rucksack, ready to be used. What did you like most about seeing how a rucksack's made?
Do you remember the name of the fabric that makes the bags really strong? That's right, it's called nylon. Did Did you hear the sound of all the sewing machines? And did you see my special slow motion camera filming the bar tack stitch? It made a zigzag pattern, didn't it?
So the next time you use a rucksack and take a look inside to put some things in, you'll know how it was made. And if you go to an airport, you know how the baggage gets from a check-in desk onto a plane. I'll see you next time.